A 68-year-old woman asked for a job as a nanny in the Millionaire's house. But when she saw a photo in the living room, she fell to her knees and screamed a name that made everyone tremble. The scent of yesterday's soup lingered in Dolores Martinez's tiny kitchen as early morning light filtered through worn curtains. At 75, her hands showed every year of hard work. Knotted veins mapped across skin that had long lost its elasticity, but those hands still moved with purpose as she prepared a simple breakfast. The radio crackling with the morning news in the background. Her one-bedroom apartment in Chicago's South Side wasn't much. Peeling wallpaper, a radiator that clanked through winter nights, and furniture that had seen better decades. But it was hers. Photos dotted the walls, mostly of other people's children she had cared for over the years. There was a conspicuous absence of family portraits. Another day, she whispered to herself, a ritual that had become her morning prayer. She sat at her small kitchen table, the classified section of the newspaper spread before her, red pen in hand. The circles around job listings for caregivers and nannies grew more desperate with each passing day. Her Social Security check barely covered rent, and her savings had dwindled to almost nothing. As she circled another potential job, her mind wandered to another time, another life, 45 years earlier, when she was just 30, and her world had momentarily seemed full of promise. Kansas, 1979. The small rural house buzzed with simple joy. Young Dolores, her rounded belly leading the way, hung freshly washed baby clothes on the line outside their modest farmhouse. The spring breeze carried the scent of nearby fields, and her husband Jack had promised things would get better. "We'll make it work," he had assured her, kissing her forehead. "This baby is our blessing." But behind his smile, worry lines deepened. The farm was failing. Loan notices piled up on their kitchen table. Jack's drinking had gotten worse, his temper shorter. Still, Dolores believed. When she felt the baby kick, she sang Spanish lullabies her own mother had sung to her. When Rachel came into the world that summer, with a full head of dark hair and lungs that announced her arrival with impressive force, Dolores felt a completeness she had never known. Even Jack seemed transformed, holding his daughter with careful hands that smelled of earth and sweat. "She's perfect," he had whispered. A rare moment of tenderness. For 3 wonderful months, they were a family. Dolores would rock Rachel to sleep, whispering promises of a beautiful life ahead. But behind closed doors, Jack's meetings with the bank became more frequent, his return home marked by slammed doors and empty whiskey bottles. "They're going to take everything!" he shouted one night. "Everything!" Dolores held Rachel tighter. "We'll figure it out. We always do." But Jack had already figured it out, in the worst possible way. The Bradleys were well known in the county. Old money, a childless couple from the city who had been asking around about adoption opportunities. Private arrangements were common then, especially when money changed hands quickly and quietly. Dolores didn't know about the meetings, didn't know about the agreement, didn't know that the envelope of cash Jack suddenly produced to pay their overdue mortgage had cost her everything that mattered. She only knew that one afternoon, she woke from a nap to find Rachel's crib empty. "Jack," she called, panic rising in her throat. "Jack, where's the baby?" The note on the kitchen table was brief. "They'll give her a better life than we ever could. Don't look for her. It's done." The memory still cut like glass. Dolores pushed away her coffee cup, no longer hungry. The authorities had been useless. Jack insisted it was a legal private adoption, that Dolores had agreed, without money for lawyers and with Jack threatening her. She had nowhere to turn by the time she scraped together enough to start searching. The trail was cold. For years, she chased ghosts, moved to Chicago, worked as a nanny and housekeeper, always scanning the faces of well-dressed little girls on playgrounds, in shopping malls, outside private schools, always wondering. Jack disappeared with his share of the money. Last she heard, he died in a bar fight somewhere in Nevada 10 years ago. Dolores felt nothing when she got the news. He had died to her the day he sold their daughter. The phone's shrill ring pulled Dolores back to the present. Her neighbor, Consuelo. "Any luck with the jobs?" her friend asked. "Not yet," Dolores sighed. "But I'm trying again today. The Martin family never called back, and the Wilsons said I was overqualified." She didn't say what they both knew. Overqualified was code for too old. "I heard the Morgan family is looking for someone," Consuelo offered. Up in Gold Coast. Their nanny quit suddenly. Gold Coast. Those people don't hire women like me, Consuelo. The wife died recently. Cancer, I think. The man has a little girl, maybe 6 or 7. Maria's cousin cleans for them sometimes. She says they're desperate. Dolores jotted down the number Consuelo recited. The Gold Coast might as well have been another country, where Chicago's wealthiest resided in lakefront mansions that Dolores only glimpsed from bus windows. After hanging up, Dolores looked around her small apartment. The ceiling had a water stain that resembled a map of Florida. The refrigerator hummed loudly. On its last legs, she had exactly $27 to last until her next Social Security check. She picked up the phone and dialed the number. A polite but distant voice answered. Not the family, but an assistant who explained they were conducting interviews that afternoon. When Dolores gave her name and experience, the hesitation was palpable. Mrs. Martinez, the child is quite energetic. The position is quite demanding. Dolores straightened her back. Even though the woman couldn't see her. I've raised dozens of children over 40 years, miss. I've handled everything from colic to teenage rebellion. There's nothing I haven't seen. A pause. Can you come at 2 o'clock? Dolores looked at her best dress hanging on the closet door. Navy blue. Modest. Only slightly worn at the seams. I'll be there. After hanging up, she stood at her window, looking out at the city. Somewhere out there was her daughter. If she was still in Chicago. If she was still alive. 45 years of wondering. 45 years of searching for a face she wouldn't even recognize anymore. Another day, she whispered again. But this time it sounded more like a question than a prayer. Charles Morgan stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his study, watching the gardener trim the pristine hedges that lined his property. From the 3rd floor of his Gold Coast mansion, Lake Michigan stretched before him like a private painting. Today, a steely gray that matched his mood. At 45, he had achieved everything society deemed valuable. CEO of Morgan Financial Group, board member for 3 major corporations, and owner of this 7-bedroom historical landmark overlooking the lake. None of it mattered without Rachel. 8 months since her passing, and the house still felt like a museum dedicated to her absence. Her perfume lingered in their closet. Her books remained arranged by color on the library shelves. Her rainbow system that had always made him smile. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Mr. Morgan? It was Mrs. Peterson, the housekeeper. Ms. Bennett is here with the candidate list for today's interviews. Charles turned, nodding. Send her in. Allison Bennett, his personal assistant for 7 years, entered with her usual efficiency. Impeccably dressed in a gray pantsuit, tablet in hand, she approached with the caution everyone seemed to use around him these days. We have 5 candidates scheduled between now and 4 o'clock, she explained, handing him profiles of each. All have extensive childcare experience and excellent references. Charles glanced at the files without really seeing them. And where is Chloe now? With Mrs. Peterson in the playroom, Allison hesitated. She refused breakfast again. A familiar weight settled on Charles's chest. Since Rachel's death, Chloe had become increasingly withdrawn. At 6, she was too young to fully comprehend the permanence of death, yet old enough to feel the devastating hole her mother's absence had created. The last nanny, Ms. Winters, Allison provided. Right, Ms. Winters. Why exactly did she leave so suddenly? Allison's professional demeanor cracked slightly. She said Chloe was challenging, the nightmares, the tantrums, and when Chloe locked herself in the bathroom and refused to come out for 3 hours last week, Charles ran a hand through his salt and pepper hair. I see. What he didn't say was that he understood his daughter's behavior all too well. How many times had he wanted to lock himself away? How many nights had he paced these halls until dawn, unable to face their empty bed? Should I send the first candidate up at noon? Allison asked. Fine. He turned back to the window. And Allison, add my parents to the dinner schedule this weekend. It's time Chloe saw her grandparents again. After Allison left, Charles made his way down the curving staircase to the East Wing playroom, a space Rachel had designed with whimsical murals of forests and talking animals. He paused outside the door, listening to Mrs. Peterson's gentle coaxing. Just a few bites. Miss Chloe, your daddy will be sad if you don't eat anything. I'm not hungry. The small voice was flat, emotionless. Charles entered to find his daughter seated at her tiny table, a plate of untouched toast and fruit before her. Chloe's dark hair was pulled into uneven pigtails. She had refused help with her hair for weeks now, insisting, "Mommy does my hair." The result was increasingly unkempt, but no one had the heart to force the issue. "Good morning, Princess," Charles said, kneeling beside her chair. Chloe regarded him with solemn brown eyes. Rachel's eyes. "Is Mommy coming back today?" The question, asked almost daily, never failed to devastate him. Mrs. Peterson quietly excused herself, leaving father and daughter alone. "No, sweetheart. Remember what we talked about? Mommy had to go to heaven. She can't come back, but she loves you very much." The practiced words felt hollow. "Then I want to go to heaven too." Chloe pushed her plate away. Charles swallowed hard. "We can't go yet. Mommy would want us to stay here and take care of each other." Then why did she leave? The simple logic of children, devastating in its clarity. She didn't want to leave sometimes. Sometimes people get very sick, and doctors can't make them better. 3 years of battling cancer. And all he could offer was this simplified explanation. Chloe's lower lip trembled. "I hate doctors." "I know, Princess." He gently tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "We're going to meet some nice ladies today who might help take care of you. Would you like that?" "No." Chloe crossed her arms. "I don't want a new nanny. I want Mommy." Charles checked his watch. The first interview would start soon. "How about we make a deal? You meet these ladies with me, and afterward, we can have ice cream in the garden." Chloe considered this, her small face serious. "2 scoops. 2 scoops," he confirmed. Relief washing over him at this small victory. The morning interviews were disastrous. The first candidate, a young woman fresh out of college, seemed terrified of both Chloe and the mansion itself. The second, an experienced nanny with impeccable credentials, spoke to Chloe as if she were an infant, earning a deliberate juice spill on her expensive shoes by the time the fourth candidate left. After Chloe had asked in excruciating detail about what happens to bodies after death, Charles was exhausted. "One more," Allison reminded him gently. "Mrs. Martinez, she's older than the others. I almost didn't include her. But her experience is impressive." "Fine," Charles sighed. "Send her in." He wasn't prepared for the woman who entered his study. Dolores Martinez was indeed older, mid-70s, he guessed, with silver-streaked black hair pulled into a neat bun. Her clothes were clean but modest, clearly chosen with care. But it was her eyes that caught him off guard. Deep brown, lined with age but alert and dignified. Something about her gaze made him sit up straighter. "Mr. Morgan," she said simply, her voice carrying a slight accent. "Thank you for seeing me. Please, sit down, Mrs. Martinez." He gestured to the chair opposite his desk. She sat with a grace that belied her age, her posture perfect, hands folded in her lap. "I understand you have a daughter who needs care." "Yes, Chloe. She's 6. Charles found himself unusually forthright. "I should be honest. She's having a difficult time. My wife, Rachel, passed away 8 months ago." A shadow crossed Dolores's face, so brief he almost missed it. "I'm very sorry for your loss, Mr. Morgan. Losing a mother is the hardest thing for a child." There was something in her tone, not the practiced sympathy of the other candidates, but something deeper, more authentic. "You've worked with children experiencing grief?" he asked. "Yes, and I've experienced it myself." She held his gaze. "Children need honesty, patience, and someone who isn't afraid of their pain." Charles studied her resume. "You've been caring for children for over 40 years. Children have been my life's work," she said simply. When Chloe was brought in, Charles watched carefully, unlike the forced enthusiasm of the other candidates. Dolores simply smiled gently at his daughter. "Hello, Chloe," she said. "Your father tells me you like ice cream." Chloe, who had been standoffish with the other candidates, tilted her head curiously. "How did you know my mommy died?" The blunt question had sent the other nannies into awkward stammering. Dolores didn't flinch. "I can see it in your eyes," she answered softly. "You carry something heavy for someone so small." Chloe stared at her for a long moment, then approached and touched Dolores's hand, examining the age spots and wrinkles. "Your hands look like my grandma's." "That's because I've had many years to use them," Dolores replied. "They've held many children who needed comfort." Charles watched in amazement, as Chloe, who had been hostile to every other candidate, climbed onto the couch next to Dolores and asked, "Do you know how to make pancakes shaped like animals?" After Chloe was escorted out, Charles found himself making the decision without hesitation. "When can you start?" he asked. Something flickered in Dolores's eyes. Relief, perhaps, or something deeper he couldn't name. For a brief moment, she reminded him of Rachel, not in appearance, but in some indefinable quality. "Tomorrow," she said simply. "I can start tomorrow." Dolores arrived at the Morgan mansion at precisely 7:30 the next morning, a small suitcase in hand containing everything she owned of value. Mr. Morgan had insisted she move into one of the staff bedrooms. The commute from the south side would be too demanding daily. She had agreed readily, leaving her apartment key with Consuelo to check on things. The morning air was crisp as she approached the massive oak doors. She paused, taking in the immensity of the house with its stone facade and manicured grounds. How many houses like this had she entered over the decades? Yet she had always remained the outsider, the helper, never truly belonging. Mrs. Peterson greeted her with a polite efficiency that spoke of years managing the household staff. "Mr. Morgan is already at breakfast. He'd like you to join them once you're settled." The staff bedroom exceeded anything Dolores had expected, larger than her entire apartment, with a queen bed, private bathroom, and windows overlooking a garden just beginning to show signs of spring. She set her worn suitcase on a bench and quickly changed into a simple black dress with a white cardigan. Professional, but comfortable for chasing after a 6-year-old. When she entered the breakfast room, Charles Morgan was scanning the business section of the Tribune while attempting to coax Chloe into eating something more substantial than dry cereal. "Just try the eggs, princess. Cook made them special for you." Chloe poked at the plate with obvious disinterest. "They're too yellow." Charles looked up, noticing Dolores. Relief flashed across his face. "Mrs. Martinez, good morning, please, join us." Dolores sat at the immaculate table, noting how Chloe's eyes tracked her movements with curiosity. "Good morning, Mr. Morgan." "Good morning, Miss Chloe." "Do you like eggs?" Chloe asked immediately, pushing her plate slightly toward Dolores. Dolores smiled. "I do, but I like them best when I get to cook them myself. Maybe tomorrow you could help me make breakfast." Chloe's eyes widened slightly. "Mommy used to let me crack the eggs." A shadow passed over Charles's face at the mention of his late wife, but Dolores didn't miss a beat. "Then you must be very good at it. I could use an expert egg cracker." The ghost of a smile appeared on Chloe's face. Fleeting, but real, Charles looked between them, clearly surprised by this small breakthrough. After breakfast, Charles pulled Dolores aside in the hallway. "I need to head to the office, but I've cleared my schedule to be home by 6. Chloe's routine is outlined in the folder Mrs. Peterson prepared for you." He hesitated. "She hasn't been sleeping well. Nightmares, and she might talk about her mother a lot." "That's natural, Mr. Morgan. Children process grief differently than adults." He nodded, clearly uncomfortable. "Right. Well, if there are any issues, we'll be fine," Dolores assured him gently. She had cared for enough grieving children to recognize the signs of a father equally lost in his own pain. After Charles left, Dolores returned to find Chloe sitting exactly where they'd left her, staring at her untouched breakfast. "Well," Dolores said, sitting beside her, "since this is my first day, I was hoping you might give me a tour of your home. Would you do me that honor?" Chloe considered this seriously. "Like a tour guide." "Exactly. I hear the best tour guides know all the special secret places." This approach, treating Chloe as competent and knowledgeable, worked exactly as Dolores had hoped. The little girl slid from her chair, suddenly animated by her important role. "We have to start with the big staircase," she declared. "It's where Cinderella would walk if she lived here." What followed was a tour. Unlike any conventional walkthrough of the mansion, Chloe led Dolores through a child's eye view of the enormous house. The best hiding spots during hide-and-seek. The windowsill in the library where sunbeams made the perfect napping spot for the family cat, long deceased but still referenced in present tense. The echo spot in the grand foyer, where Chloe demonstrated how to make your voice bounce off the high ceiling. As they moved through the house, Dolores noted how the decor subtly revealed the life that had been lived there. Family photos were everywhere, carefully arranged on tables, walls, mantels, most featuring a beautiful dark-haired woman with Chloe's eyes and smile, Rachel Morgan. Dolores found herself lingering on these images, something tugging at her subconscious. "That's my mommy," Chloe said, catching Dolores studying a particularly striking portrait in the upstairs hallway. She was the prettiest mommy in the world. "She's beautiful," Dolores agreed, noting Rachel's warm smile and the sparkle in her eyes. There was something hauntingly familiar about her features, though Dolores couldn't place why. Perhaps she resembled another child she had cared for over the years. "She's in heaven now," Chloe continued matter-of-factly. "Daddy says she can see me all the time, but I can't see her anymore." Her small face clouded. "I don't think that's fair." Dolores knelt to Chloe's level. "No, it isn't fair at all. It's okay to be angry about that." Chloe's eyes widened slightly, clearly surprised by this validation of her feelings. "Ms. Winters said I shouldn't be sad because Mommy wouldn't want me to be sad." Dolores shook her head. "Your mommy would want you to feel whatever you need to feel. Being sad when you lose someone you love is how we know how special they were to us." Tears welled in Chloe's eyes, but she quickly blinked them away. "I want to show you my room now." Chloe's bedroom was a little girl's dream. A canopy bed with sheer curtains, bookshelves filled with colorful titles, and a dollhouse that was an exact miniature replica of the Morgan mansion itself. But what struck Dolores most was the collection of framed photos on Chloe's nightstand. All of Rachel in one. Mother and daughter wore matching sundresses, their heads thrown back in identical laughter. "This is your special place," Dolores said softly. Chloe nodded solemnly. "We have one more important place for the tour." She took Dolores's hand, leading her back downstairs and toward a part of the house they hadn't yet visited. The double doors to what appeared to be a formal living room were partially closed. Chloe pushed them open with a reverence that made Dolores's heart clench. "This is Mommy's special room now," she whispered. The room was beautifully arranged around a central memorial. A table draped in cream-colored silk held a collection of items: fresh flowers in crystal vases, unlit candles in silver holders, Rachel's favorite books, and childhood mementos. At the center stood a large portrait photo of Rachel, surrounded by smaller family pictures. "Daddy sits here sometimes at night when he thinks I'm sleeping," Chloe explained, her voice still hushed. "He talks to Mommy's picture." Dolores approached the memorial slowly. Drawn to the centerpiece portrait, Rachel Morgan smiled back at her. A professional photo, likely taken only a few years ago. She wore a simple black dress, her dark hair falling in waves around a heart-shaped face. Her eyes, Chloe's eyes, seemed to look directly at Dolores. Something shifted in Dolores's chest as she studied the photo more closely. The shape of Rachel's smile, the slight dimple in her left cheek, the way her eyes crinkled at the corners, all struck a chord of recognition so profound that Dolores felt the room begin to spin. It couldn't be. It wasn't possible. But as she stared into Rachel Morgan's eyes, Dolores saw the shadow of her own features, the same features she had searched for in crowds for 45 years. The room tilted sideways as realization crashed through her. "Mrs. Martinez!" Chloe's voice seemed to come from far away. "Are you okay?" Dolores's knees gave way. She clutched at the edge of the memorial table, sending a small vase toppling as she collapsed to the floor. The sound of breaking glass seemed distant, unimportant. "My baby," she whispered, tears streaming down her face as she stared up at Rachel's portrait. "My Rachel." The last thing she heard before darkness closed in was Chloe's frightened voice calling for help. When Dolores regained consciousness, she was lying on a sofa in what appeared to be Charles Morgan's study. Mrs. Peterson stood nearby, pressing a cool cloth to her forehead, while a wide-eyed Chloe watched from the doorway. "She just fell down, Daddy," Chloe was explaining to Charles, who had apparently been called home from work. "We were looking at Mommy's pictures and she started crying." Charles approached Dolores with concern etched on his face. "Mrs. Martinez, are you all right? Should I call a doctor?" Dolores struggled to sit up, her mind racing. How could she possibly explain what had just happened? That she believed his dead wife was her long-lost daughter. He would think she was senile, delusional. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Morgan," she managed. "I haven't been eating well lately. I got dizzy." Charles didn't look convinced. "Chloe said you were crying and mentioned someone named Rachel." Dolores felt a chill run through her. Had she really spoken her daughter's name aloud? She looked at Chloe, who was watching her with that unnervingly perceptive gaze. You said my Rachel, Chloe confirmed, mimicking Dolores's anguished tone with eerie accuracy. Mrs. Peterson cleared her throat. Miss Chloe, why don't we go to the kitchen and get some cookies for Mrs. Martinez? She needs sugar after her fainting spell. After they left, an uncomfortable silence filled the room. Charles sat in an armchair across from Dolores, studying her with new intensity. Mrs. Martinez, he began carefully. My wife's name was Rachel. Dolores's hands trembled in her lap. She had spent 45 years searching, hoping for this moment. Now that it had arrived, terror gripped her. What if he didn't believe her? What if he sent her away? Mr. Morgan, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. I need to tell you something that will sound impossible. Charles leaned forward, his expression unreadable. Go on. Dolores took a deep breath. 45 years ago, I had a baby girl. Her name was Rachel. Her voice broke. When she was 3 months old, my husband sold her to a wealthy family. I've been searching for her ever since. Charles's face darkened. What are you suggesting, Mrs. Martinez? When I saw your wife's portrait, Dolores's voice faltered. The resemblance is... I know how this sounds, but I believe Rachel, your Rachel, was my daughter. Charles stood abruptly, pacing to the window. That's impossible. Rachel's parents were Jonathan and Eleanor Bradley. They were family friends. I've known them my entire life. The Bradleys. Dolores's heart raced. From Kansas. Charles turned, surprise evident on his face. They had a country estate there, yes, but they primarily lived in Chicago. His eyes narrowed. How would you know that? Because they were the family, Dolores whispered. The family my husband told me about after he took my baby. Charles shook his head, his expression hardening. This is absurd. The Bradleys were pillars of Chicago society. Jonathan was on the board of my father's bank for 30 years. Please, Dolores pleaded, rising shakily to her feet. Look at me. Really look. Don't you see the resemblance? Rachel had my eyes, my smile, even the dimple on her left cheek. It's the same as mine. Charles stared at her, conflict evident on his face. For a moment, Dolores thought she saw a flicker of doubt in his eyes, but then his expression closed off. Mrs. Martinez, I think you should rest. We can discuss this when you're feeling better. You don't believe me? It wasn't a question. Charles sighed. What you're suggesting would mean Rachel's entire life was built on a lie. That the people who raised her, people I've known and respected my entire life, were involved in some kind of child trafficking. Forgive me if I find that difficult to accept. Dolores's shoulders slumped. Of course he wouldn't believe her. A poor elderly woman making outrageous claims about his beloved wife and her prestigious family. I understand, she said quietly. But please, before you dismiss what I'm saying entirely, will you at least look into it? For Rachel's sake? Something in her tone must have reached him. After a long moment, Charles nodded curtly. Get some rest, Mrs. Martinez. We'll talk more later. After he left, Dolores sank back onto the sofa, exhaustion overtaking her. After decades of searching, to find her daughter only to learn she had already lost her again. It was almost too much to bear. Charles sat in his home office long after midnight, a tumbler of whiskey untouched beside him, staring at his computer screen. What had begun as an attempt to disprove Dolores's outlandish claim had turned into hours of increasingly disturbing research. The Bradleys had indeed owned property in rural Kansas in the late 1970s. Eleanor had suffered multiple miscarriages before mysteriously returning to Chicago with an infant daughter in 1979. The same year Dolores claimed to have lost her baby. Most troubling was what he'd found in his father's old digital archives. A series of private payments from William Morgan to Jonathan Bradley around the same time, labeled simply personal matter, large sums with no clear business purpose. Charles rubbed his temples, fighting a growing sense of dread. His father and Jonathan Bradley had been more than business associates. They were close friends who had vacationed together, served on the same boards, attended the same exclusive clubs. If the Bradleys had acquired a baby through questionable means, could his own father have been involved? A soft knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. It was Mrs. Peterson, looking apologetic. I'm sorry to disturb you so late, Mr. Morgan, but there's something you should know. She hesitated. About Mrs. Martinez. Charles gestured for her to continue. After her episode today, I helped her to her room. She was quite distraught and kept mentioning dates and places. Mrs. Peterson shifted uncomfortably. I took the liberty of looking into her background. She's been searching for her daughter for decades. There are newspaper clippings, missing persons reports, even a feature on one of those true crime shows from the 90s. Charles felt his stomach sink. You believe her story? Mrs. Peterson chose her words carefully. I believe she believes it, sir. And there is a resemblance. I noticed it myself when I helped her to her room. Something about the eyes. After Mrs. Peterson left, Charles returned to his desk, pulling up photos of Rachel and placing them alongside Dolores's employment file photo. The similarities were subtle but undeniable. The same arch of the eyebrows, the same smile, even the way they both tilted their heads slightly in photographs. It's not possible, he whispered to himself, but the denial sounded hollow even to his own ears. His phone buzzed with a text from his father. Heard you hired new help for Chloe, how's she working out? Charles stared at the message, wondering if there was more to the inquiry than casual interest. Did his father somehow know about Dolores? About her claims? Instead of responding, Charles picked up the phone and dialed a number he rarely used. Steve, it's Charles Morgan. I need your help with an investigation. Completely confidential. He paused. I need everything you can find on a private adoption in Kansas, 1979. The family name is Bradley. The private investigator on the other end asked a few questions, then promised results within 48 hours. After hanging up, Charles walked to Rachel's memorial room, standing before her portrait in the darkness. Who were you really? He whispered to her image. For the first time since her death, the familiar face seemed to hold secrets he'd never suspected. He thought about Chloe, sleeping upstairs, Rachel's daughter, who might also be Dolores's granddaughter. The implications were staggering, if what Dolores claimed was true. It meant Rachel had lived her entire life unaware of her true origins. It meant the family Charles had married into, people he'd trusted and respected, had participated in something unforgivable, and it meant his own family might be complicit as well. What am I supposed to do with this, Rachel? He asked the silent photograph. No answer came, but as Charles finally turned to leave, he noticed something he'd overlooked before. In the portrait, Rachel wore a simple gold locket, her lucky charm, she'd always called it, though she never knew where it had come from. The Bradleys had given it to her on her 5th birthday, claiming it was a family heirloom. With a sudden chill, Charles remembered seeing a similar locket in Dolores's hands earlier that day, when she'd clutched her cardigan in distress. Some truths, no matter how deeply buried, find their way to the surface. Charles stood outside his parents' sprawling Lincoln Park home, hesitating before ringing the bell. At 78, William Morgan remained an imposing figure in Chicago's financial world, semi-retired but still wielding considerable influence. His mother, Victoria, at 75, maintained an active social calendar and her position on multiple charity boards. They'd been surprised by his impromptu Sunday visit, especially without Chloe. He'd left his daughter with Dolores, telling himself it was to give them time to bond. In truth, he couldn't bear to witness the warmth between his daughter and his parents if what he suspected was true. William opened the door himself, clapping Charles on the shoulder. This is unexpected. Everything all right with my granddaughter? Chloe's fine, just wanted to talk. His father led him through the familiar house to the sunroom where Victoria was arranging flowers. Charles, what a lovely surprise. She kissed his cheek. Though I'm disappointed you didn't bring Chloe. We've hardly seen her since... She stopped, her smile faltering. Since Rachel died went unspoken. I need to ask you both something, Charles said, declining the offered seat. About the Bradleys. A flicker passed between his parents. So brief he might have missed it if he hadn't been watching for exactly that reaction. Jonathan's health isn't improving, I'm afraid, Victoria said, resuming her flower arranging. Eleanor says the new treatments aren't working as hoped. This isn't about Jonathan's cancer, Charles said flatly. It's about 1979. It's about Rachel. The silence that followed was deafening. William's face hardened, while Victoria's hand stilled among the roses. What about Rachel? His father asked, voice unnaturally controlled. Charles took out his phone, showing them a photo of Dolores. Do you recognize this woman? Victoria glanced at the photo indifferently. Should I? Her name is Dolores Martinez. She believes Rachel was her biological daughter. stolen from her as an infant and sold to the Bradleys. Charles watched their faces carefully. Strangely enough, my investigation is turning up evidence supporting her claim. Victoria's hand flew to her pearls. That's preposterous. William remained unnervingly calm. What investigation are you referring to, Charles? Bank transfers from you to Jonathan Bradley in 1979. Property records showing the Bradleys in Kansas at the exact time and place this woman's baby disappeared. And most damning, Charles pulled out another photo, this one of Rachel as a young woman, side by side with Dolores's employment photo. The resemblance is undeniable. Victoria sat heavily in a chair. I don't understand why you're digging into this nonsense. Because I need to know if my wife, Chloe's mother, was essentially kidnapped. Charles rarely raised his voice to his parents, but the words echoed through the sunroom. I need to know if you were involved. William's jaw tightened. You're treading dangerous ground, son. Then tell me I'm wrong, Charles challenged. Tell me the Bradleys didn't buy a baby from some desperate farmer in Kansas. Tell me you didn't help facilitate it or cover it up. His father moved to the bar cart, pouring himself a scotch with steady hands. When he turned back, his expression was glacial. The Bradleys wanted a child. They'd tried everything. Years of fertility treatments, multiple miscarriages. Eleanor was suicidal after the last one. He took a measured sip. Jonathan came to me about a private adoption opportunity. I simply helped with the paperwork. William, Victoria gasped. He already knows, Victoria. William fixed his gaze on Charles. Yes, I helped the Bradleys adopt Rachel. I ensured the transaction was handled discreetly, but I never knew the specifics of where the child came from. Jonathan handled that part. Charles felt physically ill. Transaction? She was a baby, not a stock option. It was a different time, William said dismissively. Private adoptions happened all the time, especially among our circle. The Bradleys gave Rachel everything. The finest education, opportunities, love. Would she have had that with some penniless farm woman? That farm woman has spent 45 years searching for her daughter, Charles said through clenched teeth. And Rachel died never knowing the truth about her own life. Victoria stood abruptly. This conversation is over. I won't have you tarnishing Rachel's memory with these sordid accusations. This isn't about tarnishing Rachel, Charles countered. It's about the truth. Chloe deserves to know where she comes from. William set down his glass with a sharp click. And what exactly do you plan to do with this truth, Charles? Announce to Chicago society that the Bradleys acquired their daughter on the black market. Drag our family name through this mess. For what purpose? For justice, Charles said simply. For Dolores. For Rachel. His father laughed coldly. Justice, always the idealist. Let me be clear. If you pursue this, there will be consequences, not just socially, but financially. The Morgan Foundation's bylaws give me discretion over succession. Chloe's future inheritance could be affected by your crusade. The threat hung in the air between them. Charles stared at his father, seeing him clearly perhaps for the first time, not the titan of industry he'd idolized growing up, but a man willing to bury inconvenient truths to protect reputation and status. You would punish your own granddaughter to keep this secret. I would protect this family from your self-righteous impulsivity, William corrected. Some secrets serve a purpose, Charles. Some truths only cause pain. Charles turned to leave, then paused at the door. Rachel deserved better, from all of us. Back at the mansion, Charles found Dolores and Chloe in the kitchen, rolling out cookie dough. For a moment, he simply watched them from the doorway, struck by the easy companionship that had developed in just days. There was nothing calculated in Dolores's gentle guidance or Chloe's responsive smiles. It was raw, natural, the bond of shared blood they didn't yet know they possessed. Chloe spotted him first. Daddy, we're making abuela cookies. Abuela cookies, Charles echoed, questioning. It's what my grandmother called polvorones, Dolores explained, a hint of nervousness in her voice. Chloe was asking about different cookies from around the world. Dolores knows lots of stories, Chloe added, her face animated in a way Charles hadn't seen since Rachel's death. She told me about growing up on a farm with chickens and a mean old rooster named Colonel. Charles felt a pang, remembering how Rachel used to tell Chloe bedtime stories about a fictitious childhood farm, stories that might have been subconscious echoes of her earliest memories. Sounds wonderful, he managed. "Chloe, could you wash up? I need to speak with Mrs. Martinez for a moment." After Chloe skipped, Dolores wiped flour from her hands, her expression guarded. "How was your visit, Mr. Morgan?" Charles leaned heavily against the counter. "Illuminating. My father essentially confirmed your story, though he claims ignorance about where Rachel came from specifically." Dolores inhaled sharply. "Then you believe me?" "I'm starting to," he admitted. "My investigator found records confirming the Bradleys were in Kansas when you say your daughter was taken. Your description of the family matches, and the timeline fits with their sudden announcement of a adopted daughter." Tears welled in Dolores's eyes. "After all these years, there's more," Charles continued. "I've requested access to Rachel's medical records. If you're willing to provide a DNA sample, we could have definitive proof." Dolores nodded, overwhelmed. "Anything. I'd do anything. I need to ask you something important," Charles said, lowering his voice. "What do you want from this? If we confirm Rachel was your daughter, what then?" "I want Chloe to know the truth," Dolores said without hesitation. "I lost my chance with Rachel. I won't lose my granddaughter too." The certainty in her voice resonated with something inside Charles. Despite everything, he found himself trusting this woman who had entered their lives just days ago, yet already seemed essential. "If the DNA confirms it," he said slowly, "we'll tell Chloe together, but gently. She's already lost so much." From the doorway, unnoticed by either adult, Chloe watched them with solemn eyes, sensing the weight of unspoken secrets that somehow involved her, 5 days after his confrontation with his parents. Charles received the call he'd been both anticipating and dreading. The DNA results had come back. Dolores Martinez was, with 99.8% certainty, Rachel's biological mother. The science had confirmed what his heart had already begun to accept. He now sat alone in his home office, the DNA report lying on his desk next to a glass of untouched bourbon. The house was quiet. Dolores had taken Chloe to the park, giving him space to process the news he'd shared with her that morning, the joy that had illuminated her face when he told her. A mix of vindication and heartbreak so profound it had been almost unbearable to witness. Charles swiveled his chair toward the wall of built-in shelves behind his desk. Among the leather-bound business books and financial reports sat a row of photo albums, Rachel's meticulous documentation of their life together. He pulled one down at random, opening to images of their honeymoon in Greece. Rachel on a white sand beach, laughing as waves crashed around her knees. Rachel exploring ancient ruins, her history degree making her an enthusiastic tour guide. Had she ever suspected, ever questioned why she looked so different from Eleanor and Jonathan Bradley? She'd once mentioned offhandedly that she must have taken after some distant Bradley relative with her olive skin and dark eyes. The thought that Rachel had lived her entire life, 38 years, without knowing her true origins filled Charles with a hollow ache. She'd died believing one story about herself, when the truth had been something entirely different. His phone buzzed with a text from his private investigator. "Found something interesting in Bradley House records. Professional organizer cataloged items after Eleanor's death last year. Several boxes of Rachel's childhood things in attic, including journals, currently in storage." Charles texted back immediately. "Get them." He returned the photo album to its place and moved to another shelf where Rachel's personal items were stored. After her death, he couldn't bear to part with anything, even the mundane. Her reading glasses, half-used notebooks, the antique letter opener she'd inherited from Eleanor. On impulse, he pulled out a wooden box containing Rachel's jewelry. The piece he sought sat near the top, a delicate gold locket she'd worn frequently. Rachel had told him it was a Bradley family heirloom, given to her on her 5th birthday. He examined it now with new eyes, noting the intricate floral design that didn't match the Bradleys' usual taste for understated elegance. Opening it revealed tiny photographs. On one side, Rachel as a young woman. On the other, baby Chloe. But Charles knew that before Chloe, Rachel had kept a different photo inside. A faded picture of a dark-haired young woman, holding an infant. "My birth mother," Rachel had always said with a shrug when he'd asked. "At least, that's what the Bradleys told me. They didn't know anything about her. Closed adoption and all that. Another lie." Charles now realized the Bradleys had known exactly who Rachel's mother was. He slipped the locket into his pocket, just as his phone rang. The storage facility had released Rachel's childhood boxes to his investigator, They would be delivered within the hour. The 3 cardboard boxes sat on his office floor, labeled in Eleanor's precise handwriting, Rachel, school, Rachel, childhood, and Rachel, personal. Charles started with the last one, carefully lifting out yearbooks, certificates, and photo albums. At the bottom of the personal box, he found what he was looking for, a stack of journals bound with a faded ribbon. Rachel had been a prolific writer from childhood through adulthood, documenting her thoughts, fears, and dreams in elegant handwriting. Charles had always respected her privacy, never reading her journals during their marriage. Now he hesitated only briefly before untying the ribbon. The earliest journal was covered in rainbow stickers, its pages filled with a child's uneven script. He skimmed through tales of school days and birthday parties. Setting it aside, the second detailed teenage crushes and college aspirations. It was the third journal, a leather-bound book with RB, embossed in gold, that caught his attention. Inside the cover, Rachel had written, age 32-35. This would have been during her early years of marriage to Charles, just before and during her pregnancy with Chloe. He turned the pages carefully, feeling like both an intruder and a detective. Much of it contained familiar memories. Their wedding, honeymoon, the purchase of their home, the joyful discovery of her pregnancy. Then, about 2/3 through, the tone changed. January 15th, 2018. Strange news from Dr. Winters today. The genetic screening showed markers for a rare blood disorder that runs in families. Neither mom nor dad has it in their medical history. When I mentioned this, Dr. W gave me an odd look and asked if I was adopted. I laughed it off. I look too much like mom for that. But something about his question has been nagging at me. Charles flipped forward several pages. February 3rd, 2018. I asked mom directly about my birth today. She became flustered, which isn't like her at all. Dad suddenly needed to make a phone call. Their reaction was telling. I've never considered the possibility before, but now I'm wondering. A few more entries detailed Rachel's growing suspicions. Inconsistencies in childhood stories, missing baby photos from her first months, the strange way her parents changed the subject whenever she mentioned genetic traits. Then, dated just 3 weeks before her cancer diagnosis, March 10th, 2018, I found my birth certificate in the family safe while looking for insurance documents. It lists mom and dad as my birth parents, but it was filed in Kansas, not Chicago, and dated almost 3 months after my supposed birth date. I confronted Dad. After all these years of half-truths, he finally admitted it. I was adopted as an infant. A private arrangement, he called it. When I pressed for details about my birth parents, he claimed they knew nothing. A closed adoption through a lawyer who has since died. I don't believe him. There's more to this story. Charles's heart raced as he flipped to the next entry, March 14th, 2018. Dad finally broke down and told me more. After I threatened to hire an investigator, my birth mother was a young woman from a poor farming family in Kansas. Dad said she willingly gave me up, wanting a better life for me than she could provide. But he wouldn't give me her name or any details that could help me find her. When I asked if she ever tried to contact me, he became evasive. I can't help but wonder if she spent all these years looking for me. Does she think about me on my birthday? Does she wonder what became of her baby, now that I have Chloe? I can't imagine the pain of being separated from her. If I ever find my birth mother, the first thing I'll do is make sure she meets Chloe. My daughter deserves to know her real grandmother. Charles stared at the page, his vision blurring. Rachel had known, in the final months of her life, as cancer began its insidious spread through her body. She had discovered part of the truth, but she had never known her mother's name, never known that her daughter would one day be cared for by the very woman she had been searching for. The last journal entry was dated 1 week before Rachel entered the hospital for the final time, never to return home. April 27th, 2018. The cancer is progressing faster than expected. There's so much I wanted to do. Find my birth mother, take Chloe to Greece, grow old with Charles. I'm writing letters for Chloe to open on important birthdays. There's so much I want to tell her, but I don't know if I'll have the chance. I've written one more letter, for Charles. I've asked him to help Chloe find her grandmother someday. It's strange to think of this unknown woman, but we're connected by blood, and that means something. I hope she would be proud of the life I've lived, of the daughter I've raised. The letter is in my blue box. The one with the silver stars? Charles will know where to look when the time is right. Charles closed the journal, his hands trembling. The blue box with silver stars. It sat on the top shelf of their closet, containing Rachel's most precious mementos. He had avoided opening it after her death, the pain too raw. Now, he rose on unsteady legs and made his way to their bedroom. Still, their bedroom in his mind. Though Rachel had been gone for 8 months, the box was exactly where it had always been, gathering a thin layer of dust inside. Beneath dried flowers from their wedding and Chloe's first baby hat, lay a sealed envelope addressed simply, "For Charles. Open when you're ready." Rachel's final message waited inside, her last words to him, penned in her elegant handwriting, waiting to guide him through the impossible choice that now lay before him. Charles sat on the edge of the bed, Rachel's letter trembling in his hands. For months, he had avoided this moment, the finality of reading words she had written knowing they would be her last to him. Now, he carefully broke the seal and unfolded the pages. "My dearest Charles, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and for that, I'm so sorry. I hope some time has passed and that you and Chloe are finding your way forward. You are stronger than you know, my love. There's something I need to tell you, something I discovered in these final months that has changed how I understand my life. I am adopted, not in the official sense with agencies and paperwork, but through some private arrangement my parents made. I've pieced together that I was born to a young woman in Kansas, then somehow came into my parents' care. When I was just an infant, my parents refused to give me details, but I sense there's something troubling about how it happened. The timing of my arrival in their lives, their evasiveness, the missing documentation. It all points to something they're ashamed of. I've made peace with not knowing my full history before I leave this world, but there is someone out there who gave birth to me, a woman who may have spent decades wondering what became of her child. And there's Chloe, who deserves to know her complete heritage. I have a request, Charles, when the time feels right. Please try to find my birth mother, not for me, but for Chloe. Our daughter should know this piece of herself, this woman whose blood runs in her veins alongside yours. Tell Chloe all our family stories. Tell her how we met in that ridiculously pretentious art gallery where you knew nothing about the artist, but pretended you did. Tell her about our honeymoon in Santorini, and how you got so sunburned you couldn't move for 2 days. Tell her I loved her from the moment I knew she existed. And when you find my birth mother, welcome her into Chloe's life. Don't let any awkwardness or complicated feelings stand in the way. Do this one last thing for me. My love, all my heart, forever." Rachel Charles pressed the letter to his chest, tears flowing freely. Even in death, Rachel had found a way to guide him. She had wanted exactly what was now unfolding, for Chloe to know her grandmother. The timing was almost mystical, as if Rachel had orchestrated Dolores' arrival into their lives. He carefully refolded the letter and slipped it into his pocket. Alongside the locket, both were meant for Dolores now. When Dolores and Chloe returned from the park, Charles was waiting in the kitchen, the sight of them together. Chloe animated as she hadn't been in months, Dolores listening with the attentive patience only grandmothers seemed to possess, cemented his resolve. "Chloe, sweetheart, could you go up to your room for a bit? I need to talk with Mrs. Martinez." Chloe looked between them, that perceptive gaze catching something in his tone. "Is it about the secret?" Charles froze. "What secret?" "The one you and Dolores whisper about when you think I'm not listening." Chloe's directness was pure Rachel. "Is it about my mom?" Dolores met Charles's eyes, a silent question passing between them. "Was it time?" "Yes," Charles admitted. "It is about your mom, but I need to talk to Mrs. Martinez first. Then we'll talk to you together, okay?" Chloe considered this, then nodded solemnly. "I'll be in my room with Francesca, her favorite doll, a gift from Rachel on her last Christmas." After Chloe left, Charles gestured for Dolores to sit at the kitchen island. "I found something today." He placed Rachel's letter and the locket on the counter between them. Rachel knew she was adopted. She discovered it just before her diagnosis. Dolores picked up the locket with trembling fingers. "This is..." Her voice broke. "I gave this to Rachel when she was born. It belonged to my grandmother. The Bradleys must have kept it," Charles said quietly. "They gave it to Rachel on her 5th birthday. Told her it was a family heirloom." "It was," Dolores whispered. "Just not their family." Charles watched as she carefully opened the locket, revealing the photos inside. Rachel replaced the original pictures. "Do you remember what was in it before?" Dolores nodded, tears spilling down her weathered cheeks. A tiny photo of my parents, Rachel's grandparents, and a lock of Rachel's baby hair. She closed the locket gently. She wore this almost every day. Called it her lucky charm. Charles pushed the letter toward her. "You should read this." As Dolores read Rachel's final words, Charles prepared coffee, giving her privacy for this intimate moment. When he returned with 2 steaming mugs, Dolores was staring out the window, clutching the letter to her heart, just as he had done earlier. "She wanted to find me," Dolores said softly, "even without knowing my name or anything about me. She wanted her daughter to know her grandmother." Fresh tears welled in her eyes. "And now I'm here, because of you, because of Rachel," Charles corrected gently. Somehow she made this happen. They sat in contemplative silence, the revelation creating a new bond between them. 2 people who had loved Rachel in different ways, now united in their shared loss and in their love for Chloe. "We need to tell her," Dolores finally said. "Chloe deserves to know who I am." Charles nodded. "How do we explain something so complicated to a 6-year-old? "With love," Dolores said simply, "and with truth, told gently." They found Chloe in her room, having a serious tea party with Francesca and 2 other dolls. She looked up when they entered, immediately sensing the importance of the moment. "Is it time for the secret now?" she asked, setting down a tiny teacup. Charles sat on the edge of her bed while Dolores took the small chair beside the tea table. "Yes, sweetheart, we have something very special to tell you. It's about your mommy," Dolores added softly. "And it's about me." Chloe's eyes widened. "Did you know my mommy?" "Not exactly," Charles explained carefully. "But Dolores and your mommy were connected in a very important way." He paused, searching for the right words. "Do you remember when we talked about how families are made in different ways?" Chloe nodded. "Like my friend Emma, who has 2 daddies, and Marcus, who was adopted." "Adopted, yes," Charles corrected gently. "Well, it turns out that your mommy was adopted too. She grew up with Grandma Eleanor and Grandpa Jonathan, but she was born to another mother." Chloe's brow furrowed as she processed this information. "Who was her first mother?" Dolores took a deep breath. Chloe, I'm your mommy's birth mother, which makes me your biological grandmother." Chloe stared at Dolores with new interest. "So you're my real grandma, not Grandma Victoria." "Victoria is still your grandmother through me," Charles explained. "But Dolores is your grandmother through mommy." Chloe seemed to consider this, her young mind grappling with these complex relationships. "But why didn't you live with mommy when she was little? Didn't you want her?" The innocent question cut straight to the heart of the matter. Dolores reached for Chloe's small hand. "I wanted your mommy more than anything in the world," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I loved her very much, but sometimes grown-ups make bad decisions that hurt others. Your mommy was taken from me when she was just a tiny baby, and I spent many years trying to find her." "Who took her?" Chloe demanded. Indignation flaring in her eyes, Charles and Dolores exchanged a look. Some truths were too harsh for 6-year-old ears. "Someone who thought they were doing the right thing," Charles said carefully. "Your Grandma Eleanor and Grandpa Jonathan loved your mommy very much and gave her a wonderful life. But they weren't nice to take someone else's baby," Chloe stated with a child's clear moral compass. "No, it wasn't nice," Dolores agreed. "But the important thing is that I've found you now. After all these years, I've found my granddaughter." Chloe studied Dolores intently. "Is that why you were crying when you saw mommy's picture? Because you found her too late?" Dolores nodded, unable to speak through her tears. Chloe slid off her chair and walked to Dolores, placing a small hand on her cheek, in a gesture so like Rachel that both adults caught their breath. "It's okay," Chloe said softly. "Mommy can see you from heaven now, and I'm still here." She wrapped her arms around Dolores's neck. "Can I call you abuela? That's what you taught me." "For grandmother in Spanish." Dolores enfolded Chloe in her arms, decades of longing and loss pouring into this embrace with her granddaughter. "Yes, mi corazón. Yes, you can call me abuela." Over Chloe's head, her eyes met Charles's. In them he saw not triumph or vindication, but a profound gratitude that transcended the pain of the past. Watching them together, Charles felt Rachel's presence more strongly than he had since her death, as if in reuniting her mother and daughter, he had fulfilled some cosmic promise. The invisible bonds of family, stretched but never broken across time and distance, had finally drawn them together. The following days brought a strange new rhythm to the Morgan household. Chloe had embraced the revelation about Dolores with the remarkable resilience of childhood, quickly adopting abuela into her daily vocabulary and peppering Dolores with endless questions about her mother's babyhood. Did my mommy cry a lot when she was tiny? Was she good at walking early like me? Did she have favorite songs? Each question pierced Dolores's heart, reminders of the precious milestones she'd missed. Yet she answered each one, filling in what little she knew of Rachel's first 3 months and sharing stories from her own childhood to create a sense of heritage for her granddaughter. Charles watched their growing bond with complex emotions. Relief that Chloe had found comfort in this new connection, guilt over his family's complicity in the original wrongdoing, and lingering anxiety about the next necessary step. Making the truth public, 1 week after telling Chloe, Charles found himself pacing his office, preparing for the most difficult phone call of his life. "You don't have to do this," Dolores said from the doorway, watching him with concern. Charles stopped pacing. "Yes, I do. For Rachel. For all of us." He gestured to the chair across from his desk. "But I'd like you to be here when I call them." Dolores hesitated, then nodded, taking the offered seat. Her presence grounded him as he dialed his parents' number, putting the call on speaker. His mother answered on the third ring. "Charles, is everything all right with Chloe?" "Chloe's fine, Mother. But I need to speak with both you and Dad. It's important." A pause. Then his father's voice joined the call. "What's this about, son?" Charles took a deep breath. "I've confirmed that Dolores Martinez is Rachel's biological mother. The DNA results are conclusive." Silence stretched across the line, finally broken by William's cold tone. "And what do you intend to do with this information?" "I've already told Chloe the truth about her grandmother," Charles replied. "Now I'm informing you that I plan to formally acknowledge Dolores as Rachel's mother and Chloe's grandmother, with all the legal recognition that entails." "You've lost your mind," William snapped. "Think of the scandal, the damage to our family's reputation. The Bradleys purchased a stolen child," Charles interrupted sharply. "And you helped them do it." "We did no such thing," Victoria protested. "Jonathan assured us the adoption was legitimate." "Stop lying," Charles said wearily. "I have the bank records, the private payments, Dad's signature on documents that disappeared from public records. Rachel discovered she was adopted before she died, though she never learned the full truth." Another heavy silence. "You have no idea what you're tampering with," William finally said, his voice dangerously low. "There are implications beyond your little moral crusade, legal implications for all of us." "Are you threatening me, Dad?" "I'm warning you. As your father and as chairman of the Morgan Foundation, actions have consequences." Charles felt a cold clarity settle over him. "Yes, they do, which is why I'm giving you both the courtesy of this call before I meet with my lawyers tomorrow." He paused. "I'm prepared to break from the family business if necessary," Victoria gasped. "Charles, be reasonable after everything we've built." "I'm thinking of what Rachel would want," Charles replied firmly, "and what Chloe needs." "And what does this woman want?" William demanded. "Money? Position? Is that why she's manipulating you?" Dolores, who had been silent throughout the exchange, finally spoke. "I want nothing from you, Mr. Morgan. I've lived without wealth my entire life. All I want is to know my granddaughter and to honor the memory of the daughter I lost." There was a stunned pause before William spoke again, his voice icy. "You've brought this woman into our family affairs. Dolores' family," Charles stated simply. "More family to Chloe than either of you have been these past months." "This conversation is over," William declared. "Our lawyers will be in touch." The line went dead. Charles set down the phone, exhaustion washing over him. That went about as expected. Dolores reached across the desk, briefly touching his hand. "You didn't have to confront them for my sake." "I did it for all of us," Charles replied. "Some secrets poison everything they touch as long as they're kept hidden." He sighed deeply. "My father will retaliate, Financially, socially. He'll use every lever he has. Are you prepared for that? Dolores asked softly. Charles thought of Rachel's letter, of Chloe's newfound joy, of the peace that had begun to settle over their household despite the external turbulence. Yes, he said simply. Some things matter more than money or status. The following evening found them in the library, Charles working on his laptop while Dolores helped Chloe with a school art project. The easy domesticity of the scene still surprised him. How quickly their lives had reconfigured around this new truth. Daddy, can Abuela come to Grandparents' Day at school next week? Chloe asked, looking up from her collage. Charles hesitated. They hadn't yet discussed how to handle public appearances. The legal acknowledgement was one thing, but introducing Dolores as Rachel's mother to their social circle was another matter entirely. Before he could answer, the doorbell rang. Mrs. Peterson appeared moments later, looking uncomfortable. Mr. Morgan, the Bradleys are here. They're quite insistent on seeing you. Charles felt his stomach tighten. Just Jonathan? Or Eleanor too? Both of them, sir. Charles exchanged a look with Dolores, whose face had gone pale. I'll handle this, he said quietly. Take Chloe upstairs. No, Dolores replied, her voice stronger than he expected. I've waited 45 years to face the people who took my daughter. I won't hide now. After a moment's consideration, Charles nodded. Chloe, go with Mrs. Peterson to the kitchen for some ice cream. Grown-up talk for a little while. Once Chloe was safely out of earshot, Charles led Dolores to the formal living room where the Bradleys waited. Jonathan Bradley, once an imposing figure in Chicago finance, now looked frail. Cancer had taken its toll over the past year. His once robust frame was gaunt, his complexion ashen. Eleanor, by contrast, remained stiffly elegant in her designer suit, though her face betrayed the strain of recent days. Charles, Jonathan acknowledged coldly before his gaze shifted to Dolores. Something flickered in his eyes, recognition perhaps, or guilt quickly suppressed. You must be Mrs. Martinez, Eleanor said, her voice brittle. Dolores stood straight, dignity evident in every line of her body. Yes, I'm Rachel's mother. The blunt statement hung in the air between them. Eleanor flinched slightly but maintained her composure. My father told me about your claims, Jonathan said to Charles, and your intentions to make this public. They're not claims, Charles replied evenly. They're facts, confirmed by DNA testing. Rachel was Dolores's daughter, taken from her illegally and sold to you through an arrangement my father helped facilitate. That's not, Eleanor began. But Jonathan raised a hand, silencing her. We gave Rachel everything, he said, addressing Dolores directly. The finest education, opportunities you could never have provided, a life of privilege and security. You gave her everything except the truth, Dolores replied quietly. And you took from me the most precious thing in the world, the chance to raise my child. We had tried for years to have a child, Eleanor said, tears forming in her eyes. You can't understand. I understand loss better than anyone in this room, Dolores interrupted. I lost my daughter for 45 years. I searched for her until I had nothing left, and when I finally found her, she was already gone. Her voice broke slightly. So don't tell me what I can't understand. Mrs. Bradley. A heavy silence fell over the room. What do you want? Jonathan finally asked, his businessman's instincts emerging even now. We can arrange compensation. I want nothing from you, Dolores said firmly, except perhaps one thing, the truth. Did you know I was searching for her? Did Rachel ever ask about me? Jonathan and Eleanor exchanged a glance that spoke volumes. There were inquiries over the years, Jonathan admitted reluctantly. We discouraged them. And yes, Eleanor added softly. In her final months, Rachel asked many questions about her adoption. We told her as little as possible. Her eyes filled with tears. We were afraid of losing her love. The simple admission seemed to deflate something in Dolores, the anger that had sustained her through decades of searching. She loved you, she said quietly. That much is clear from everything Charles has told me. Whatever else you did, you raised a daughter who was capable of great love. The unexpected grace of this statement appeared to unsettle the Bradleys more than any accusation could have. Jonathan sank into a nearby chair, suddenly looking every day of his 77 years. What happens now? he asked Charles. I'm legally recognizing Dolores as Rachel's biological mother and Chloe's grandmother, Charles answered. Beyond that, I have no interest in punishing you or exposing you publicly. This isn't about vengeance. Eleanor dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. And what about Chloe? Will you tell her that we've told her a version appropriate for her age, Charles said. That her mother was adopted under complicated circumstances. As she gets older, she'll learn more. Jonathan nodded slowly, then reached into his jacket pocket, withdrawing a small envelope. Rachel's baby book, he said, offering it to Dolores. And other mementos from her early years. You should have them. As Dolores accepted the envelope with trembling hands, a tiny voice came from the doorway. Is that pictures of my mommy when she was little? They all turned to find Chloe standing there. Ice cream forgotten, her eyes wide with curiosity. The silence that followed Chloe's innocent question seemed endless. Charles recovered first, crossing to his daughter and kneeling beside her. Yes, sweetheart. These are pictures of your mommy when she was very small. He glanced at the Bradleys. These are your mommy's parents who raised her. You know them as Grandma Eleanor and Grandpa Jonathan. Chloe looked at them with renewed interest. She hadn't seen the Bradleys since Rachel's funeral, and in her young mind, they existed almost as characters from stories rather than real people. Hello, she said politely, then turned back to Dolores. Can I see my mommy's baby pictures? The tension in the room deflated in the face of Chloe's simple request. Dolores held out her hand. Why don't we look at them together? Mrs. Peterson appeared in the doorway, apologetic. I'm sorry, Mr. Morgan. She slipped away while I was getting the ice cream. It's all right, Charles assured her. Then, making a split-second decision, could you bring tea for everyone? We'll be in the sunroom. The sunroom, with its comfortable seating and wall of windows overlooking the garden, offered neutral territory. Charles led the unlikely group there, watching as Chloe naturally took a seat between Dolores and Eleanor on the sofa. Jonathan lowered himself carefully into an armchair, his illness evident in every careful movement. Dolores opened the envelope with trembling fingers, withdrawing a small stack of photographs. The first showed a newborn Rachel, swaddled in a hospital blanket. This was your mommy's first day in the world, Dolores said softly, though her eyes registered pain at the unfamiliar hospital surroundings. Not the rural clinic where she had given birth. She was so tiny, Chloe marveled. All babies start tiny, Eleanor said, her voice softer than before. She hesitated, then added, She grew quickly, though. By 3 months, she had the most beautiful smile. Dolores looked up sharply. 3 months. The timing wasn't lost on her. That was when Rachel had been taken from her. Eleanor met her gaze, something like understanding passing between the women. Yes, that's when she came to us. They continued through the photos. Rachel's first Christmas, her first steps, first day of school. With each image, Dolores absorbed another moment of her daughter's life that she had missed, while Eleanor provided quiet narration. She loved that red bicycle. Eleanor reminisced as they came to a picture of a gap-toothed Rachel proudly displaying her new bike, insisted on riding it every day, even in the snow. She was stubborn, Dolores observed with a small smile, like my mother. And like Chloe, Charles added, earning a comically indignant look from his daughter. I'm not stubborn, Chloe protested. I'm determined. That's what Mommy always said. The adults shared a knowing glance. The first moment of genuine connection between them, as Chloe grew absorbed in examining a photo of Rachel in her high school graduation cap and gown, Jonathan leaned toward Charles. Victoria called Eleanor this morning. He said quietly, William is not handling this well. I expected as much, Charles replied, matching his low tone. He's frozen my personal accounts, the ones connected to the family business. Jonathan nodded grimly. He's gathering the board, trying to isolate you. I have my own resources, Charles assured him, though the financial maneuvers had been more aggressive than he'd anticipated. This isn't about money. No, Jonathan agreed, his gaze drifting to Chloe. It never was. Eleanor's voice drew their attention back to the conversation on the sofa. Your mother loved looking at the stars, she was telling Chloe. We had a small telescope, and she would spend hours in the backyard, charting constellations, I still have her astronomy books. I'd like to see those, Dolores said quietly. If you wouldn't mind sharing them. Eleanor appeared startled by the request, then nodded slowly. Of course. As the afternoon stretched on, an unexpected rhythm developed. The initial tension gradually gave way to something more complex. Not friendship, exactly, but a shared reverence for the absent woman who connected them all. They moved from photos to stories, each offering pieces of Rachel that the others had never known. She used to sing to herself when she thought no one was listening, Eleanor recalled. Beautiful voice, but terribly shy about it. She sang to Chloe every night, Charles confirmed. Spanish lullabies, though I never knew where she learned them. Dolores caught her breath. I sang to her in Spanish when she was a baby, the same songs my mother sang to me. She remembered, Eleanor whispered, a new understanding dawning. Somehow, she remembered. The revelation hung in the air between them. The idea that something deeper than conscious memory had survived the separation, that some essential connection had endured despite everything. Chloe, growing restless with the adult conversation, had wandered to the coffee table where she discovered an old photo album Charles had recently unearthed from storage. She flipped through it with casual interest until something caught her eye. Daddy, Abuela, look, she exclaimed, holding up the album. Mommy has the same smile as Abuela. The adults gathered around as Chloe pointed to a photo of Rachel in her mid-20s, laughing at something off camera. Her head was tilted at a particular angle, her smile creating the same dimple pattern as Dolores's. May I? Dolores asked, gently taking the album. She studied the photo, then slowly raised her eyes to meet Eleanor's. She has your elegance, though, the way she holds herself. Eleanor's composure finally broke, tears spilling down her cheeks. I'm sorry, she whispered. We didn't know you were searching. Jonathan's lawyer said it was a proper adoption, that you had agreed. That's what Jack told them, Dolores said quietly, the old pain evident in her voice. My husband, he forged my signature, took the money and disappeared. If we had known, Jonathan began, but trailed off, unable to complete the thought. Would it have changed anything? Dolores asked, not unkindly. You wanted a child? You had the means to make it happen. We loved her, Eleanor said simply. With everything we had. I know, Dolores acknowledged. She grew into an extraordinary woman that speaks to the home she had. The admission seemed to ease something in Eleanor. She reached into her purse and withdrew a small key. Rachel's keepsake box, she explained, offering it to Dolores. I've kept it all these years. It should be yours now. As Dolores accepted the key, Charles watched the significance of the moment register on her face. It wasn't just a key to a box of mementos, but an acknowledgement of her rightful place in Rachel's story, a tangible symbol of recognition decades overdue. Thank you, Dolores said, her voice thick with emotion. The afternoon light had begun to fade when Mrs. Peterson appeared to announce dinner. To everyone's surprise, Jonathan and Eleanor accepted the invitation to stay. What followed was a surreal meal, 3 generations connected by love for the same woman, finding their way through the complex landscape of shared grief and newly discovered truth. After dessert, as Chloe enthusiastically showed the Bradleys her latest art project, Charles found Dolores standing by the window, gazing out at the garden where spring flowers were just beginning to bloom. Are you all right? He asked quietly. Dolores nodded, her eyes still on the garden. I spent so many years imagining confronting them with anger. I never expected to feel gratitude. Gratitude. They loved her, Dolores said simply. When I couldn't be there, they gave her a good life. She turned to face him. Hate is exhausting, Charles. I've carried it for so long, alongside the grief and the hope. I'm ready to set it down. Charles studied this remarkable woman who had endured so much, yet maintained such capacity for grace. Rachel would be proud of you, he said softly. She had that same quality, the ability to see beyond the surface of things. Dolores smiled, a hint of mischief lighting her eyes. Of course she did. She was my daughter. From across the room, Chloe's laughter rang out as Eleanor helped her with a particularly tricky part of her art project. Jonathan watched them with a gentle expression that belied his usual stern demeanor. In that moment, despite the challenges still ahead, William's retaliation, the inevitable social fallout, the complex legal processes to formalize Dolores's status, Charles felt a profound sense of rightness. The truth, painful as it had been to uncover, was already working its healing magic. The missing piece of their family puzzle had finally been found. Morning sunlight filtered through stained glass windows, casting jewel-toned patterns across the assembled guests in the Morgan family chapel. 3 months had passed since the truth about Rachel's origins had emerged, and today marked the formal recognition of that truth, a ceremony Charles had carefully designed to honor both the past and the future. Dolores sat in the front row, resplendent in a deep blue dress that Eleanor Bradley had helped her select. Beside her, Chloe fidgeted in her white lace dress, occasionally leaning against her grandmother's shoulder. On Dolores's other side sat the Bradleys, Jonathan frailer than ever but determined to attend, Eleanor maintaining her composed elegance despite the whispers their presence had generated. The small chapel, typically used only for Morgan family weddings and funerals, now hosted an eclectic gathering. Charles's closest friends, colleagues who had stood by him during the recent corporate turmoil, and a handful of Dolores's friends from her Southside neighborhood, including a beaming Consuelo. Notably absent were Charles's parents. William had made good on his threats, orchestrating Charles's removal from the Morgan Financial Board and cutting him from family assets. The financial blow had been substantial, but not devastating. Charles had his own investments and Rachel's inheritance from the Bradleys. More painful was the social fallout. Many in their circle had chosen sides, and the story, despite Charles's attempts to control the narrative, had become prime fodder for Chicago's elite gossip mill. The full truth of Rachel's illegal adoption remained private, but enough details had emerged to create a scandal that showed no signs of fading. None of that mattered today. Charles stepped to the small podium, surveying the gathered faces. "Thank you all for coming to this special ceremony. Today isn't about the past. Though we acknowledge it, it isn't about blame. Though we accept responsibility, today is about recognition, reconciliation, and new beginnings." He gestured to Dolores. 3 months ago, an extraordinary woman came into our lives. She was seeking employment, but found something far more meaningful: the granddaughter she never knew she had, and the truth about her long-lost daughter. Dolores dabbed at her eyes as Charles continued. "Rachel Morgan, my wife, Chloe's mother, lived a life full of love and purpose. She was kind, brilliant, and fiercely devoted to her family. What we've learned about her origins doesn't change who she was, but it does complete her story, and it gives her daughter, our daughter, the full heritage she deserves." Charles moved to stand beside a veiled portrait at the front of the chapel. "Today, we formally recognize Dolores Martinez as Rachel's biological mother and Chloe's grandmother, with all the legal and familial rights that entails." He removed the velvet covering to reveal a new portrait of Rachel, not the formal one from the memorial, but a candid photo showing her laughing in the garden with baby Chloe. Beneath it, a newly inscribed plaque read, "Rachel Martinez Bradley, Morgan, beloved daughter of Dolores Martinez and Jonathan and Eleanor Bradley, cherished wife of Charles, devoted mother of Chloe. Her light continues to guide us all." Rachel's full name now reflects her complete heritage, Charles explained, and so will Chloe's. At this, he beckoned Chloe forward. The little girl approached with uncharacteristic solemnity, though her eyes sparkled with excitement. "Chloe Rachel Morgan Martinez," Charles announced, as a judge whom he'd invited stepped forward. "That's your new legal name, sweetheart, carrying forward both sides of your mother's heritage." The judge, a longtime family friend, smiled warmly at Chloe before addressing the gathering. "I've had the privilege of formalizing the legal arrangements, recognizing Mrs. Martinez's status as Rachel's biological mother and Chloe's grandmother. These documents," he gestured to a leather portfolio on a small table, "ensure that this recognition extends beyond today's ceremony into all legal and practical matters." The formal proceedings continued briefly, with the judge explaining the legal implications for inheritance, medical decisions, and other practical matters. Throughout it all, Chloe maintained her place between Charles and Dolores, occasionally reaching for both their hands simultaneously. Following the ceremony, the gathering moved to the mansion's garden, now in full spring bloom. Staff circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres as guests mingled in the warm afternoon air. Charles found himself approached by Jonathan Bradley, who had insisted on walking rather than using the wheelchair Eleanor had tried to make him accept. "A fine ceremony," Jonathan said, his voice weaker than even a few weeks ago. Rachel would have approved. Charles nodded. That was my only concern. William called me yesterday, Jonathan added, his tone carefully neutral, trying to gauge where my loyalties lie. And where do they lie? Charles asked, though he already suspected the answer. Jonathan glanced across the garden to where Eleanor and Dolores sat with Chloe between them, looking through what appeared to be an old photo album. With them, he said simply. With family, whatever form it takes. I appreciate that, Charles said sincerely, especially given the cost. The cost was considerable. The Morgan-Bradley connection had been the foundation of numerous business ventures over decades by standing with Charles against William. Jonathan was sacrificing partnerships worth millions, money that, given his declining health, would have secured Eleanor's future. There are more important things than business alliances, Jonathan said, as if reading Charles's thoughts. I've come to realize that rather late in life. He paused, his gaze turning inward. I've made provisions for Eleanor, and for Dolores. Charles raised an eyebrow in surprise. In my revised will, Jonathan clarified. Reparation of a sort. Not that money can compensate for what she lost. He shook his head slowly. If we had known she was searching all those years. Charles placed a hand on the older man's shoulder. We can't change the past. But this, what we're doing now, this is what Rachel wanted. A family united, not divided. Across the garden, Chloe's laughter rang out as she showed Dolores something in the album, pointing excitedly. Dolores's face lit up in response, her hand gently stroking Chloe's hair in a gesture that reminded Charles painfully of Rachel. Later, as the sun began to set and guests gradually departed, Charles found himself alone with Dolores on the garden terrace. She had been quiet throughout much of the reception, observing the social dynamics with thoughtful eyes. Are you all right? He asked, joining her at the stone balustrade overlooking the now empty garden. Yes, she said softly, just processing everything. It's been quite a journey these past months. Charles nodded. For all of us. I never expected any of this, Dolores continued, gesturing to encompass the elegant surroundings. When I came here looking for work, I was just trying to survive. And now you're a recognized member of one of Chicago's most talked about families. Charles finished with a wry smile. For better or worse. Mostly better, Dolores assured him. She hesitated, then added, I'm sorry about your parents, about the business. Charles shrugged. The business was never my passion, just an expectation I fulfilled. As for my parents, he sighed, perhaps someday they'll come around, for Chloe's sake if nothing else. And if they don't, then we'll continue as we are, making our own way, creating our own traditions. He studied her profile in the fading light. You know, Chloe asked me yesterday if you could move your things to the bedroom next to hers. The real bedroom, not the staff quarters. Dolores turned to him in surprise. That's not necessary. But it is, Charles insisted gently. You're not staff anymore, Dolores. You're family. If you're comfortable with it, we'd like you to make this your home, permanently. Tears welled in Dolores's eyes. I never dared to hope for this much. Neither did I, Charles admitted. After Rachel died, I thought our family was broken beyond repair. But somehow, he glanced toward the house, where Chloe was visible through a window, chatting animatedly with Mrs. Peterson. Somehow, we're finding our way to something new. Rachel is still bringing people together, Dolores observed. Even now, Charles nodded, a lump forming in his throat. Even now, as twilight deepened into evening, they made their way back to the house. Not the imposing mansion it had once been to Dolores, but home, a place transformed by truth, reconfigured by love, haunted not by secrets, but by the benevolent presence of the woman who had unknowingly connected them all. 1 year later, on the anniversary of their first meeting, Charles, Dolores, and Chloe stood hand in hand before Rachel's grave. The headstone, recently replaced, now bore her full name, Rachel Martinez Bradley Morgan, and was adorned with fresh flowers. I miss her every day, Chloe said, placing a small stone on top of the headstone, a ritual Dolores had taught her from her own cultural traditions. So do I, sweetheart, Charles replied, his arm around his daughter's shoulders. Dolores stepped forward, touching the engraved name with gentle fingers. "Thank you, Mihija," she whispered, "for finding a way to bring us together." As they turned to leave, Chloe reached for both their hands, forming a chain that bridged the past, present, and future. 3 generations connected by love, loss, and the healing power of truth finally set free. In the distance, other families were gathering at the cemetery entrance. Couples with children, elderly parents with adult sons and daughters, all part of a support network Charles had helped establish for families separated by illegal or unethical adoptions, with legal assistance funded by the newly created Rachel Martinez Morgan Foundation. Because some truths, once uncovered, demand more than personal healing. They call for wider justice and the chance for other broken circles to be made whole again.